Good day, grade 12 economics learners. Welcome to today's lesson. My name is Litiane LG. As always, this lesson is brought to you by the Free State Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. Our lesson today will still be continuing with economic pursuit, focusing on economic growth and development. But then we always say it's a reminder and a recap that we have done this before. It is just that the same knowledge that we had in our previous lessons, we continue with those lessons from the previous grades as well. Hence, you look at here, we always compare grade 11 as well as our grade 12 lesson. Our focus today will be on the 2 points here, on the 3 points. That will be the supply side approach in achieving economic growth and development in South Africa. And also we are going to be looking at certain policies that were introduced by our government in order to achieve economic growth and development. We're also going to be looking at the North-South divide. In grade 11, we did that, and we're doing it in detail when we're doing growth. We also went and looked at development as well as the characteristics of developing countries. So this is our lesson for today. Supply side approach in achieving economic growth and development, evaluation of the South African policies or approach in achieving growth, and also we'll be looking at the North-South divide. So if we look at here, some policies that were introduced in South Africa, such as your EPWP, expanded public work programs, the new growth path, the National Development Plan, the Small Business Development Promotion Program, the Black Economic Empowerment Program. So these policies are the ones that the South African government introduced to achieve growth and development. They are not limited here. There are more as we continue with the lesson. We'll keep on expanding them. Then lastly, we'll also be looking at the North-South divide. But here, grade 12, you'll be looking at the standard of living that is measured in terms of income per capita, life expectancy, as well as the education level. Challenges of globalization in terms of the poverty, the growth, as well as trade. And also we'll be looking at the impact on the environment that is contributed by both the developing countries as well as the developed countries. As always, we start with our terminology, and that is the approach that each and every learner that is doing economics should always start with the concepts. They should learn those concepts because we remember that these concepts will help us when we will be writing our exam. In question 1 or section A, match column, multiple choice, as well as economic concepts where we do not accept abbreviations. Then also in section B, where we'll be asked to briefly describe a certain concept in that particular topic. Alternatively, we also go to section C, where we are writing an essay topic. So those concepts help us in the introduction. We get our 2 marks from the concept. So if you look at the terminology, is called growth, employment, and redistribution. In short, it is called the GEAR. The strategy is there to promote economic growth, increase employment, as well as redistribution of income. Now, I want us to approach it in this way, grade 12s, to say every time we do economic growth and development policies, let us think or recall the macroeconomic objectives. The macroeconomic objectives by the state. So if we can just remember those, and then they will assist us as well in terms of remembering this topic as we go on. The macroeconomic objectives, I just want to write here at the top so that I'm able to remind you. Macroeconomic objectives. You remember there are 5 of them. Number 1, it's economic growth. And number 2, I know you are saying that with me, that number 2 is to achieve full employment. Number 3, it is exchange rate stability in terms of exports and imports. Exchange rate stability. Then number 4, we said that is our price stability. Then number 5, it is our economic equity. So those are our macroeconomic objectives by the state. So it means now the government, they develop policies or they come up with policies in order to achieve these macroeconomic objectives. As you look in terms of our GEAR, the first one is growth, that is covered under economic growth, followed by employment, that is covered under full employment, and then followed by redistribution, and that is covered under economic equity. So in any other policy or in any other approach by the state, you will notice that these macroeconomic objectives will always be mentioned. So as a learner coming out of this an exam, and then you are asked to evaluate or talk about any policy or any approach, if you find out that you did not mention any job creation there, you did not mention any redistribution of income or skills development or equity, you must know that that is an incorrect application of that in economic pursuit. And with globalization now as a concept, we remember that it is the worldwide interaction of economies with trade as an important element. And not just any trade, but we also remember the World Trade Organization that is there to promote free trade. So globalization says across the countries, let us trade and with less tariffs or tariffs that have been removed at all under the free trade, as we've done it when we were doing export promotion and import substitution or protectionism and free trade as a topic. Another one, it is called the GIPSA, Joint Initiative on Priority Skills Acquisition. I think that's a key there. The word there, skills, is the key. It's an initiative to aid the development of urgently needed skills to facilitate job creation. As you remember, when you did the characteristics or when you did factors of production in grade 11, you were saying that South Africa is mostly classified with semi-skilled or unskilled labor. And therefore, this policy was introduced to urgently facilitate or to urgently promote skills that will be needed for more job creation. If you look at that job creation there, it is covered under the second macroeconomic objective, which is full employment. So you'll notice that this topic is around or it's around itself under those macroeconomic objectives. So don't say because you've done them in term 1, they are no longer applicable. They are still applicable because those are the objectives by the government. They need to achieve full employment, of which you know that when we're evaluating that in South Africa at the moment, unemployment rate keeps on going higher rather than going down. Economic growth rate are lower. So let's come up with policies that will fast track all those set targets. Then the next one is our life expectancy. Here we are saying it expresses in number of years how long a child that is born today it is expected to live. The number of years. You'll notice that when we do the difference between the North countries as well as the South countries, the life expectancy will tend to differ then. The new growth path is also another policy by the government. This initiative is to stimulate what? Economic growth, the first macroeconomic objective. The North-South divide, this one then refers to the developed countries in the North Hemisphere and the developing countries in the South Hemisphere. So when we ask you to briefly describe the concept, or when you are asked to describe the concept North-South Hemisphere, please explain it in full. The developed countries in the Northern Hemisphere as highlighted here, and the developing countries in the Southern Hemisphere. In our lesson, we'll also elaborate why you must really be specific in terms of mentioning the word developed countries in the Northern Hemisphere and the developing countries in the Southern Hemisphere. So these key concepts are very, very important for us to remember them and for us to know them. Okay, then the supply side approach in achieving economic growth and development. We also mentioned that it is the markets need to operate more equitably and inclusively. So what are we saying by that? Here we are saying more black people or more blacks should be accommodated in the mainstream of the economy for it to work efficiently. So here we are addressing the imbalances that were there in the past. So we are saying everyone that lives in South Africa, especially those that were marginalized before, they need to be allowed to participate in the economy or in the mainstream of the economy. In that way, it will economic growth will take place, employment will take place, and we'll achieve any other objective that we want to achieve. Because if you look at, according to Stats SA, in terms of the race that is mostly unemployed, it is the blacks. So therefore, they should be accommodated in the mainstream of the economy. In that way, we'll say the markets are operating equitably so, and they include everyone in it. Economic growth will be achieved, employment will be achieved. The next one we are saying business should operate efficiently, or there should be efficiency of inputs. Here, the inputs we are talking about, the text must be collected effectively or efficiently. So capital formation must be increased. Here we are talking about investment. Human resource must also be supported to improve, and also the free advisory services that are offered by the government. So for the business inputs that we are talking about is the issue of taxes, the issue of capital formation. Here we are saying there should be more investment in the country. It should increase. Human resources, here we are talking about labor. How are they supported? They must be upskilled in such a way that productivity can also increase. And productivity is the production of goods and services. When that increases, economic growth takes place. Also, there should be free advisory services for the government, for the businesses, so that they may also improve. In that way, we are achieving economic growth and development. The cost of doing business must also be lowered. So those are the key. Those are the key. In other words, here, when you remember these concepts, you are going to highlight them, or you're going to mention them in such a way that they favor growth and development. So if you are talking about cost of doing business, everything that is associated with the cost of doing business should be lowered so that the revenue or the profit that are generated can be used to expand the business, or can be used to have hire more inputs that will be used in the production process. So that should favor us. We are looking at the issues of transport, communication, and energy. They must decrease. Currently, if you look at the state of our infrastructure in South Africa, it is costly because of they should take a long way, or other people, rather than using transport such as a railway, they will use airplanes to fly goods to other countries. And you'll find that the costs that are associated with that are not cheap, or does not come cheap. In that way, those businesses may not be able to participate efficiently in the economy, and also they may not be able to promote economic growth and development. When you come to communication now, communication is associated with anything such as your towers for communication network, such as your access to internet, such as your access to data and Wi-Fi. So if you look at in South Africa, we always say that the cost of data, it is too high. So some businesses may not be able to operate efficiently, so because of that. That is why we cannot. The other one is the access, or the access of facilities such as the network. You'll find that everywhere where businesses try to establish, network does not operate efficiently there. How are they going to achieve economic growth and development in the country? So all those things must be available, and they must be lowered. Furthermore, it's issue of energy. When we are talking about energy, we are talking about, such as example, I will make an example. One, it's electricity. South Africa, we are happy that the new term that was introduced, which is load shedding, at least now we don't have that. But the issues of load shedding, the availability of electricity, and the availability of petrol, those are input costs. Those are part of the what? The energy. So if they are not easily available, or if it's not cheap for us to access them, how is the businesses going to operate efficiently? They are not going to operate efficiently. In that way, the cost of doing business would still increase or would be high, and we not achieve growth, employment, exchange rate stability, price stability, and economic equity at the end of the day. Those won't be achieved. So everything must be available. It must be lowered, especially when it comes to infrastructure. Then we also talk about the efficiency and effectiveness of markets. Here we are talking about the removal or reduction of unnecessary regulations and laws. Those should be removed because they hamper the operation of markets. Some of those are such as labor law. And once labor laws are implemented, and such as the minimum wage, in that way, the demand for labor is going to decrease because of the costs that are associated with paying salaries and wages. So if those laws are removed, businesses can be able to hire human resource in anyhow that they want and pay them salaries that are equitable for them to make profit and for them to expand in such a way that economic growth and development will increase. Remember, this is associated with businesses, not the demand side approach. In the demand side approach, you and I talk to say the labor and the salaries or the wages should be increased so that you and I can be able to afford basic goods and services. But on the side of the business, they want to decrease the cost that is associated with salaries and wages so that they can be able to make profit, and that profit can be used to expand the business, can be used to improve economic growth and development. Increasing competition. The Competition Act, we know that it was there to reduce anti-competitive behavior that is there, or that is by the companies, such as the reduction of monopolies, the reduction of collusion, as we did under paper 2 when we were doing markets where businesses collude to fix prices. So we are saying there should be a playing field that is leveled, and competition should be fair. In that way, the demand for goods and services will increase, and so does the supply for goods and services. Privatization, here we are saying it is the transfer of state-owned enterprises that must be sold to the private sector so that they can operate efficiently without any government interference or any government intervention. So we also made an example here to say Telkom was a state-owned enterprise. Now it is a privately owned enterprise. It operates efficiently. In that way, supply in the market get to increase, and the markets get to operate effectively so and efficiently so. So those are the things that we need to look at. Keywords here. When you remember that, to say, okay, under efficiency and effectiveness of markets, the keyword is RIP. The RIP, I don't want to say, you can go and make your own mnemonic so that you can remember what does this RIP stand for. But in economics, under efficiency of market, it stands for reducing unnecessary regulations, talks to increasing competition, and also privatization. So those are the ways that are much easier and nice to remember. Make your own abbreviations. Now you remember, oh, under efficiency of market, RIP. Reducing unnecessary regulations, increasing competition, and privatization. You get your marks there. Then we also talked about the issue of efficiency of inputs. Rigid or difficult labor laws, regulations applying to businesses should at least be relaxed. We are not saying labor should be exploited. People should still be paid equitable salaries, but now those laws should be relaxed rather than always looking at salaries, but everyone should be covered in for the purpose of sustainability of the business and for the purpose of the business being able to expand. In that way, entrepreneurs will be encouraged to start more businesses. And we know that when more businesses start, more people are employed, the more the availability of goods and services in a country. So all those things should be applicable. Taxes, here we are talking about both corporate as well as personal income tax, have been reduced over the past years so that people can have more equitable income that they will spend on goods and services. Even businesses as well. If the tax of businesses are reduced, that money will be used for expansion purposes. That money will be used to create more employment in the country. In that way, the country will be able to achieve its objective, which is economic growth and development. We also talked about capital. Here, the depreciation of capital goods used by the businesses has to be revised. In that way, we're encouraging more investment in the country. We are also encouraging small businesses to go and take up loans. In that way, production will take place, employment will take place. People, when they're employed, they've got spending, and then the government will be able to tax them. The tax that is collected by the government will be used for redistribution purposes. Human resource, here the SETAs were established after high school in such a way that you get a world-related training so that you are ready for the employment or you are ready to be an entrepreneur. Free advisory services, as we talked about them, here we are saying in connection with the development of export markets, managing as well as running of the SMMEs in the agricultural production. Here we are saying that if a farmer has grown crops or goods that need to be exported to other countries, the government acts as a mediator to that, to say in this particular market or in this particular country, they may be in need of citrus products that are produced where? In South Africa. So those are the free advisory services that the government should offer to businesses in South Africa so that those businesses may be able to expand. That is why we are saying here for the export market. And when you look at this export market, you will remember the macroeconomic objective number 3, which was exchange rate. I know you are saying that with me, exchange rate stability. So if our currency has appreciated, it means it will allow us to operate with other countries efficiently. So that is because of the free advisory services that are there, and we ensure that all the other measures are put in place. The government will be able to achieve that macroeconomic objective. So the agricultural products needs to be advertised in the world. When you are watching the news, when you go to other countries, when you buy water in the market, in those markets, you need to see that this is a product of South Africa. How did it get there? It is because the government also played a part in advising the businesses in which market to penetrate or in which market to enter into. Cost of doing business. This applies to infrastructure, the roads. We can assess the state of the roads where businesses are operating to say, are they efficient? Do they allow goods to move from point A to point B? The railway, is it efficient? Can the cargo move a very long distance from point A to point B? This cargo will allow businesses to transport their goods, especially those that are fragile. Power, the access to electricity. We are in an era where we have experienced load shedding in a way that hampered production, that hampered businesses, and if that is not stabilized, the cost of doing business will increase. I also mentioned the issue of telecommunication. Access to data that is cheap and relative to use. Also access to the internet services or to the network so that you are able to advertise your business or you advertise the product. As we know that now that we live in a fourth industrial revolution, everything is sold through the internet. So if that telecommunication is not stable, if you are unable to make calls, it tells us that the cost of doing business will keep on increasing. So that is the supply side approach that we are using in South Africa. We've mentioned the issue of efficient water and electricity at low cost, the issue of factors of production as natural resources can also play part in here. Here we are saying in South Africa, we've got we are very rich when it comes to minerals, and we have got a competitive advantage in respect of those minerals, your gold, your platinum, base, as well as coal. These minerals can also be exported or they can be exploited if we do not have industries that will be able to convert the raw material into finished goods so that they can be sold to other countries as well as exports. Vegetation and wildlife, we know that we enjoy a greater diversity in terms of the wildlife as well as vegetation, which allows businesses to be established next to the Kruger National Park, next to where there is water. In that way, they attract foreign direct investment, they attract money from other countries or tourists from other countries. Why? Because people want to enjoy that wildlife that we as South Africa are benefiting. And that money, government will use it or will collect it for redistribution purposes and to achieve development. Our coastline, as we know, the issue of the beautiful seas that we are having in South Africa, we are surrounded by that. So they attract tourism, more people come into South Africa, they give us the foreign exchange, then we are able to enjoy the benefits as the South African location. We know that we are in the middle, as we are next to the Australian side there. You'll notice that when we are doing the characteristics of developing countries as well as the characteristics of developed countries. So under natural resources, we are looking at the minerals, the vegetation, and the wildlife. We also look at the coastline. We also look at where we are situated. Businesses can venture into that. And once they venture into that, they will be able to hire more people that will work as tour guides, that will work in the marine in terms of generating water, making clean water. That can be exported to other countries. Government collects tax. Human resource, here we are talking about labor. Economic growth depends upon the quality and the size of labor force, and that may be productive in producing those goods and services. We also know that if we want to improve our labor, or if businesses want to improve their labor or the quality of labor, they have to improve education and training. More people should be educated. In that way, productivity will take place. Furthermore, we should improve the quality of the health services. It means the infrastructure such as your access to health services should be improved so that people can be able to live longer. Those skilled labor should be able to live longer. Also, limiting the power and the influence of trade union so that they can manipulate. Everyone should be able to say, I'm skilled enough, I'm able to produce those goods and services without any strikes that will interfere in production of those goods and services. Entrepreneurship. When an entrepreneur starts a new business, we understand that they contribute to the economy. In that way, that will lead to development, and people around where the business are started or the local community will be able to benefit. Their standard of living will improve. Then we know that economic growth, if it occurs, income will increase, the standard of living improve, investment opportunities increases, the government be able to collect more tax, and technological advantage will also be there. In that way, job creation will increase as well. If you look at all the things that I mentioned here, economists, they still take us back to the 5 macroeconomic objectives. Number 1, economic growth. When that happens, the standard of living increases. When that happens, the government is able to collect tax that will be used as an equity or as a redress income redistribution. Furthermore, more jobs will be created. Full employment is achieved. And when full employment is achieved, we know that that will lead to development in the country. Capital formation, mentioned that this talks to investment. So we are saying capital formation is essential to the country, or a country that can grow and develop. So how do we increase capital? Savings by consumers that are invested, we know that later on they may turn into investment. Now we want to highlight that here, that the problem is in South Africa is that the saving rate is very low because many people are in debt. So rather than having more money that is saved, that can also be in capital form later on, people spend on paying debts or they spend on those goods and services. So as much as we want to achieve economic growth and development under capital formation as a supply side policy, the problem will be the very same savings that we want consumers to have so that later on can be investment. They are not enough because there is a low saving rate. Money is used for consumption purposes. The other one will be saying that because of the prices of goods and services are high in South Africa, so we have failed to achieve price stability. Although we use the monetary policy under the demand side approach when we're talking about the interest rates in order to stabilize inflation, but we're still not achieving that price stability. So South Africans, rather than saving most of their income, they opt to spend it in purchasing goods and services or paying the debt. So we cannot increase capital. Increase taxes by the government, which can be spent on capital investment. We realize that because of the high unemployment rate, so the government will want ways to collect more tax, though that tax will be used to finance education. It will be used to finance social services, such as access to old age pension fund, such as to access to child grant, disability grant, foster care, and now in recent years we introduced the social relief distress grant, which is the 350 that was the rate now, and it's continuing through the collection of what taxes. So the more tax is collected by the government, it means the less people have of their disposable income, the less savings. Capital formation cannot be created. In that way, we are saying taxes should be reduced so that people can have option for savings. We continue. We also know that in South Africa is that less than 20% of the budget is spent on improving infrastructure. More it goes to the payment of salaries of government employees and all the state-owned enterprises. It's increased overseas investment, labor unrest, and also we are looking at the issue of nationalization that is threatened. All those deter foreign investment. Capital cannot be increased. So these are the challenges why capital in South Africa cannot be. We realize that infrastructure is not there, but we are going to more salaries of those government employees. There's been argument that the national debt is bloated because of salaries and wages. That should be reduced so that more money can be shifted in improving infrastructure. When infrastructure improves, we talked about the issue of roads, the issue of telecommunication, the issue of energy. And if that is improved, supply approach would have been achieved, economic growth will take place. Again, there's a continued encouragement of small and micro medium business enterprises to be established in South Africa. Rather than we are saying we depend on the government to create more jobs, people or entrepreneurs should be skilled in such a way that they will be able to create their own employment and to hire more people within the communities that they live in. That is a supply side approach. Okay. So a question. This question is relevant for 3.4 because it's an economic pursuit question, or it is relevant for 4.4. It reads as follows. Briefly discuss the supply side approach in promoting growth, economic growth in South Africa. Marks there is 8 marks. It means we expect you to write at least a minimum of 4 points. Maximum we can go as much as possible on those. I'll allow you at least 4 minutes to write all the supply side approach measures that you remember, economist. Welcome back, grade 12s. Surely here we're going to get our 8 marks. And I would wish that we check and assess ourselves as we go to say how many marks do we get here, and be as honest as possible when you are marking such questions, because these questions repeat themselves. It's a recall question. The supply side approach in promoting economic growth. So let's look at the possible suggested solution that you could have brought. Here is the starting point. You are painting a picture to us. So you're going to tell us that the supply side approach aims at increasing economic growth by improving the economy's ability to supply goods and services. So if there are more goods and services that are produced in a country, then we would say that we want to achieve our economic growth. So those are the 2 marks, first 2 marks that you are getting. Then you're also saying government intervention aims to facilitate the smooth operations of markets in order to stimulate economic growth and development. Again, this includes anything that can influence the aggregate supply of goods and services, with focus to, I still say, the macroeconomic components such as competition and potential output. How much more can we do in that way? So this is an approach that one would say, I have done this. However, it's open-ended. Hence, we are saying that discuss the supply side approach in detail. Any option or any point that you remember under the supply side approach here would be relevant, because you are not limited. We are not saying discuss the efficiency of markets, or we are not saying discuss the cost of doing business or the cost of inputs. Here we are not saying that. We just say discuss the supply side approach. So if your answers are not here, you cannot say that I failed this or I did not do it well. Let's look at the possible answers again. The protection of the competition and the promotion of SMMEs is integrated in terms of the black people that should participate in the mainstream, and the privatizing of part of the public sector, because we know that that is where most corruption takes place. And in that way, the economy or the government or the country is unable to achieve its macroeconomic objectives. Again, we are also saying here, we need to improve education and training, keep taxes in check. That means keep taxes as low as possible so that people can have more disposable income. Deregulation should be there, and also we should encourage investment from other countries. And many things attract investment from other countries. If our infrastructure is well, if the issue of electricity is stabilized, if the issue of the roads are in proper place, if we attract businesses so that they can invest through what we call foreign direct investment, that way the country will be able to improve. We will be able to achieve our macroeconomic objectives. It's not limited to this one's grade 12s. Hence, I said that we'll keep on going, we'll keep on marking. It's an open marking, this one. So don't say that because you did not mention any of this, it is incorrect. Natural resources, it's another mark. As mentioned when we were discussing the supply side approach, we did say that they are important to our economy as they form basis for production in the primary sector. These natural resources can also become an important input in the manufacturing process of the secondary sector as raw materials, and some of those intermediate goods are there to sustain production. So these are the supply side measures. You'll write the keywords natural resources, and then you also discuss based on how they contribute to economic growth and development. Okay, then we look at labor force. Here we are looking at human resource. Then we say the quality of labor or the quality of the country's labor, which is revealed in the skills as well as the knowledge. If people are healthy, they also represent the asset of that human capital. This should be improved as well. And then people will, when people live longer, when they are healthy, productivity also improves. High levels of quality of human leads to high productivity of labor, and which results in high output of those goods and services. Now here, grade 12s, you think of any supply side approach that is there to assist us in terms of achieving economic growth and development. Capital as a factor of production, we know that capital goods that comes to our country increase the production capacity, as well as providing the infrastructure to support that particular production. Capital formation, here we are talking about investment that should take place and will also increase the capital stock that is available in our country. So it's very, very important to keep track of the capital that is coming into the country rather than going out of the country. But it also says, how do we use that capital efficiently and effectively so in achieving economic growth and development? It also enables producers to produce more goods and services, which will lead to an increase in economic growth. So I still repeat, in your writing, you support measures or supply side measures that will help us to achieve economic growth and development in a country. Technology, it's another factor as we are moving to the fourth industrial revolution. It prepares us to adjust in that business world. So you cannot be a country that keeps on saying, because we've been doing products in other ways, those products should be modified in other ways. They attract demand. When they attract demand, supply will be there. But that is because of an increase in technology. Entrepreneurs, this involves the challenges of combining the factors of production in the most efficient way to produce those quality goods and services. More entrepreneurs, more supply, more production of goods and services. Economic growth takes place. That will lead to economic development. You could have also mentioned that the cost of doing business should be lowered. You also mentioned the efficiency and effectiveness of markets and efficiency and effectiveness of inputs. All those also gives you 4 marks. Then countries that engage in entrepreneurship programs have economic wealth, which is indicated in their high income per person. So every country, hence we are saying we should reduce the dependency mentality where we depend more on the government, but we need to come up with a way where there are more entrepreneurs within the economy or within the communities that we live in. In that way, the supply of goods and services will increase because we have increased competition. So we have explained it and we have opened it, and then any other correct relevant answer, as long as you've mentioned the following factors. I repeat, the cost of doing business should be lowered, and then you discussed under that, and then you also talked about infrastructural services, free advisory services, privatization. All those things will give you marks. Then you also talked about taxes. Then you mentioned the factors of production. How are these factors of production used to achieve economic growth and development? So those are our 8 marks, grade 12. We hope that we all got those 8 marks. Then when come exam, we are ready to remember and recall the lesson. Okay, so here's a picture. Now we are looking at policies or South Africa's approach in terms of economic growth and development. So we are looking at a very interesting picture here. And I know that someone is already thinking, okay, what is this? These are RDP houses as supplied or as supported by the government. Or someone would be saying, these are subsidized houses for those who earn who earn less or who are low-income earners. Those are the correct possible answers that we could ever think about this. But the most relevant answer could be the RDP houses. So the policy that we are starting with under the approaches to achieve economic growth and development, it is the Reconstruction and Development Program. It is called the RDP. Look at the year. It was established, or it was started when we get into democracy. That is in 1994. What were the aims? Number one, it was to meet the basic needs. In what way? Because many people lived below the poverty level or below the poverty line. So it was to say, when this policy was established, it was to say, let us meet those basic needs so that people can have access to food, or can have ways that they will be able to support or sustain themselves. Number two, we're saying, even if now we are fighting the issue of poverty, but there are still people that have got shortage to houses, hence the issue of reconstruction and development. Number three, if they are there, those houses, or if they were there, they did not have access to electricity. So I want to repeat this, grade 12s. When I was teaching, there's a common approach or thinking that RDP refers to a house. Hence, they will always say we need RDP houses. But this RDP, it's a policy by the government, a full policy by the government that does not only focus on the houses, on the house provisioning by the government. It is an umbrella for all the other policies that will be mentioned or that are there for us to survive. So if you are talking about reconstruction and development policy, your mind should not be on housing, but it should be on other elements that affect us, which are the contemporary economic issues. I know you are starting to think about the issue of education. Yes, it's covered under reconstruction and development policy. You are thinking about health. Yes, it's covered under the reconstruction and development policy. So A was to meet those basic needs, and then they also to provide the following. You see, the issue of land, jobs, the issue of jobs, land, housing, water, the issue of telephones, transport, food, healthcare, environment, as well as social security and welfare. Look how broad that is. It does not only focus on the housing part, but we are saying through that basic needs, people should be employed. There should be land for residential purposes. There should be land for commercial purposes. Access to housing. If those houses are there, they should have access to basic sanitation such as water and electricity. The issue of phones, the issue of transportation from point A to point B, food because of the poverty line, healthcare should also be covered, environment should also be protected, and we need to achieve our economic equity through what we call the social security welfare. So those are the basic needs that the government said we need to meet when they established this policy in 1990, in 1994. B, it says we need to develop our human resource. It was there to say, let there be a culture of teaching and learning where everyone have got an equal access to education. Aspects that had to be covered or looked at, it is the issue of education and training, the issue of literacy, the issue of arts and culture, the issue of sports, recreation, as well as youth development. Hence, you look at now in our government structures, under the MECs, you'll find that there's the MEC for education, there's the MEC for sports, arts, and culture, if they are not combined, and also there's the ones that are responsible for youth as well as women. That is because of the policy that was achieved in 1994. So I repeat, it is not only there for housing purposes. The basic needs are met. How do we do to advance the skills now? It's develop the human resource. Education and training, literacy, arts and culture, sports, recreation, as well as youth development. So these are the factors that had to be covered under B. Then another aim, C, building the economy. Here, the goal for the economy was to end poverty, create more jobs, build the South Africa and integrate it into the world economy. That means we need to be the first-class economy, or we need to be a developed country post 1994. We also need to end the issue of discrimination. Hence, where we said now everyone should have an equal access to all the basic needs or all the basic services that are supplied. This is the policy. So if everyone is equal, economic growth will take place, standard of living will then take place, then we can achieve our economic development. D, to make the economy to be as democratic as possible, where we are all equal. And then E was to implement these goals of reconstruction and development in all sectors. So when you are looking at this and you are in the communities, you should understand that this policy did not only focus on housing, but it focused on all the other aspects that affect you and I socially. Then evaluation now. If you look at all those pointers that we've mentioned, and your duty as a grade 12 learner is to say, here's the policy that was established. Up to so far, has it been successful or it has not been successful? That's a question in an exam when we'll say to you, evaluate the reconstruction and development program policy in South Africa. I repeat, the question states, evaluate the reconstruction and development program as an approach by South Africa to achieve growth and development. So when we are saying evaluate here, grade 12, you'll think of the positives and you also think of the negatives. Sometimes we say those are the successes, or you will say it has been unsuccessful. So when you are looking at the positives and the negatives, or it has been successful, or it has not been successful, or it has had some achievements, or there was nothing. But if we look at the policy post 1994 to now, in a positive way, you would be saying, yes, there's still a continuation of houses that have been built. And the government is doing so well to ensure that people have got access to the RDP houses. They even identify or earmark a piece of land where people can build those decent houses. That improves their standard of living. And those houses have got access to clean water. Or if they are unable to build housing, they ensure that wherever people are, there is access to water, there is access to the issue of electricity and the land redistribution and land restitution. There is also a support because now there are establishment of public hospitals, there are clinics in the communities that we live in. So through this policy, the government has been successful. However, you can also argue on the negatives and say there's still millions of people in South Africa that do not have access to housing. There's still millions of people in South Africa that even if they do have houses, those houses do not have access to water and electricity. And there are those people that still have their land have been taken because of the laws of the past. And that land has not yet been given back to them. That is through the land reform. The issue of health care facilities, they are overloaded and the government is behind in terms of building hospitals. You look at people in the rural areas, they have to come to urban areas for health care purposes because there are not enough hospitals wherever they are. If you look at our state healthcare facilities, they are bloated or they are overloaded in terms of the number of people or the number of patients that are admitted there. Reason being, in the communities where people live in, there are no hospitals or there are no clinics. So that's the negative part of this policy. Up to so far, that's how you evaluated creators. Positively or negatively, based on the achievements or based on things that the policy has not achieved. So in our exam, we just say to you, evaluate the reconstruction and development program that is used in South Africa. The introduction, you're going to tell us that it was introduced in 1994, if you remember the year. If not, don't mention the year. It was a policy by a government to meet the basic needs of the people, develop human resource, and also to have a democratic economy, implement that in all sectors. However, it has been successful under 1, 2, 3, housing, water, electricity, land reforms, healthcare, or it has not been successful based on the experiences or the challenges that you have with this policy. If we move here, it is growth, employment, and redistribution program. It was there or established in 1996. The aim was to strengthen economic development, to broaden the issue of employment, and also to redistribute income and socioeconomic opportunities that are in favor of those who are less fortunate. Look at the issue of growth is covered under economic growth and development. Employment is there so that people can be employed, and also the redistribution of income. So you can break that into pieces and explain each element as you go. It also remains the government's macroeconomic policy. That means it is still relevant even today, even if it was formed in the previous years, because we have not achieved the desired economic growth rate. We have not achieved full employment. And also, there's still a gap between the rich as well as the poor. So in that way, we would say that up until these goals are reached, this policy will remain as the government's macroeconomic policy. Evaluation thus far, I'm more interested. I've said the negatives already to say it has mixed outcomes. Yes, in terms of the issue of financial discipline and macroeconomic stability, it has achieved it. However, it has failed to create sustainable job opportunities. In South Africa, unemployment, rather than it decreases, it keeps on increasing. Every time when the statistics are issued or year on year, we realize that the unemployment rate keeps on increasing in that way. So the issue of employment has not been achieved. And the issue of growth, we are saying that it should grow at the rate that is around 4.5% every year. Then in that way, we would say we have achieved our economic growth. But now you realize that the Minister of Finance, when they do their budget speech in February, they will target a GDP growth of around 2% and revise it again in October. So we cannot achieve the desired output when you talk to the issue of economic growth. Therefore, this policy has also failed in some aspects. Also, it has been successful in some aspects. Asisa, or you could say it's an accelerated growth initiative for South Africa. This one was established in 2005. It was there to replace GEAR, and the aims were as follows. It was saying half poverty and unemployment by 2014. Now, I want to explain this. It means when it was established in 2005, let's say the unemployment rate was at 50% when this policy was established. So the aim there was to say, by the time we reach 2014, the unemployment rate should be how many percent, grade 12? The unemployment rate should be at 25%. That is the aim. So let's say the unemployment rate in South Africa then was at 10%. It means when we reach 2014, we would have expected the unemployment rate to be at 5%. So therefore, you can evaluate it grade 12 to say, did the government achieve its desired target? can see you shaking your heads to say, no, 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 no. Rather than they achieve their target, they're actually not achieving that. It was to set up interventions to reduce inequality and assist marginalized people. That means those people who are poor. But we realize that the gap between the rich and the poor keeps on widening each and every day because of poor government policies. It was also there to bridge the gap between first and second economies, where we are saying we also want to be part of the world class. We want to be part of the first class. It means we want to have access to everything that the developed countries are having. So that was the aim of Asisa. You can evaluate it and tell us whether it has been successful or it has not been successful. The other one is GEAR. This one was established in 2006. Also there to support Asisa. It is the skills development arm of Asisa, and it focuses on skills development through the SETAs. We could say that at least SETAs are trying to upskill skills in South Africa. In such of the programs, the learnership, the internship that are being done, that in that way they help to improve those skills so that those people, after they've finished with their school, they will trained to be ready for the labor market, or to be employed, or to even become entrepreneurs. To retain people that are skilled in South Africa, rather than after those people getting skills, they go to other countries. But we want those people to be retained in South Africa to promote economic growth and development in South Africa. Then we also want to train people more effectively and of high quality standard. Whatever that we here in South Africa are doing, or the skills that we are having in South Africa, should match the skills that other countries are having. If we have to talk about the issue of assembling cars or doing cars from afresh, having all the relevant skills as other countries do, so that we stop importing cars from other countries but we produce them in South Africa. That is why that policy was introduced in 2006. Okay. Expanded public work programs, it's written as EPWP. The aims: poverty and income relief through temporary work for those who are less fortunate, or those who are saying they are unskilled. I know you see them in communities that we live in, the ones that they will be sweeping the streets, the ones that will be cutting the grass, and they wear the orange costumes and so on. That is because they are hired through what we call EPWPs, or expanded public work programs. It provides labor-intensive work opportunities because those people are hired in numbers when they've been hired. It provides an important opportunity for labor absorption and income transfer to the poor households. However, I'm still saying here's the catch: it is for short and medium term. It is not long term, it is not permanent. So if we're to evaluate this EPWP, you would be saying, yes, in a short period of time or in a short term, people are employed, they will be able to participate in the economy by buying goods and services. However, it is there only for a short period of time. A person can only be hired for 6 months, a person can only be hired for 12 months or 18 months. After that, they go back to the communities unemployed again. So this EPWP, if you were to evaluate it, you would say it is there for temporary purposes, but it is not sustainable for long-term purposes. The government should stretch the policy, but come up with other policies that will create long-term employment opportunities. If a person is employed, they should be employed on a permanent basis to improve their standard of living. NGP, you call it the new growth path. This policy was implemented in 2011, and it was there to replace Asisa. The main aim was to enhance growth, create employment, and create greater equity. If you look at what I've highlighted, or it is the macroeconomic objectives of the state: economic growth, employment, greater equity. So these policies, hence I said that if you were asked to evaluate any of these policies, but you don't mention the issue of employment and equity in them, it means that you would have not achieved the evaluation part. It was also saying they need to promote green economy. The green economy is an economy where we use less substances that are harmful to the environment. We remove away from coal, we remove away from burning of fossil fuels, but we apply technologies such as the solar, the wind, the biofuels, the hydro energy. In that way, we are promoting clean environmental services, and also it was projected to create 300 jobs by the year 2020. It has achieved some of those elements, but at some point it has failed to achieve some of those elements. So every policy that was implemented by the government, you also need to evaluate its achievement. Okay. Like I mentioned, South Africa is still reliant on coal. That is why now most of our electricity is generated using coal. But we are saying that harm the environment. So we need to move away from that, but use the green economy. Then we've got the NDP. Then I want us to look at this National Development Plan. It was developed in 2011 and it was implemented in 2012. So let us analyze this cartoon, and I would want to know as to what are you thinking, because I see here something that is, it says here lies the NDP, which is the National Development Plan. Then also I see a person carrying something, and it's indicated there that is RSA is number 1. Then I also see a spade. Then I see some words that are written there. So now my question would be, is it a person being taken out of the boot and coming to be buried? Or what is happening in this data response question? If you are asked to say, briefly analyze the data response question, but we'll assist each other here, grade 12s. The National Development Plan, it was implemented in 2012, and at that time, it was still it was still under the former president. But now, when the new president came in, said, when they came in 2019, they said, remember that there is a policy that was there as the National Development Plan, but it was buried and they had a tombstone on it. It means there was, but as RSA is number 1, as Mzansi is number 1, which is as the president of the country, I do not come barehanded, but I come with the National Development Plan. It means they went back to the shelves and said there was a policy that was implemented in 2012. Where is that policy now? So let us also revive that policy. Let us make that policy to be alive. Hence you see there at the top to say resurrected. It means something that was buried, it is now resurrected. So it's not a corpse coming out of the car, but it was from where it was dead in the shelf or buried. It's now going into the country. This car represents our economy. And who's responsible for that? It's Mzansi's number 1, or RSA's number 1, which is the president, who made this policy to be alive again. Okay. So, Small Business Development Promotion Program. It was also designed to deliver support and services to small, medium, and micro enterprises. And the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, also the Department of Industrial Development Corporation, and the National Small Business Act those are their departments that are responsible to offer services to small, micro, medium enterprises. Laws that are revised to help changes in terms of power imbalances, where blacks are more promoted to participate in the economy. Then another policy that is there, it is the Black Economic Empowerment Policies, triple BEE. The main objective here was to say the black people that are defined as Africans first, Indians, coloreds, they should also be able to participate in the mainstream of the economy in terms of being able to own businesses, in terms of to be in positions of managerial positions, becoming CEOs of companies, becoming directors of companies, and even leading those companies successfully. So why it was there, the national empowerment targeting the historically disadvantaged people, such as the black people, women, youth, as well as people that are in the rural communities and people with disability. Hence the triple BEE. Black Economic Empowerment Act and the Employment Equity Act are there, or they were designed to assist this transformation and also the redress the challenges of the past or people that are disadvantaged in that way. Measures are implemented also here to ensure that we redress and affirmative action in workplace and business environment. You will understand that where we favor or where we don't favor people because of the color of their skin, where we are saying that there should be equality everywhere where we go. Whether it's in the business environment or in the workplace, there should be equality. Women, managerial positions as much as men. Black people, managerial position as much as white. People with disability as well should also be counted in. The youth should also be counted in. Hence this policy of Black Economic Empowerment Programs. It is still there. The government still utilizes. The key objectives: empower more black people to own businesses. It's a summary. Promote access to finance for black economic empowerment. Also assist the development and or the operational and financial capacity of the triple BE enterprises, especially on SMMEs and those black-owned enterprises. Increase the extent to which black female ownership of enterprises is there. Also to ensure that black-owned enterprises benefit from government preferential procurement policies. So we are readdressing the imbalances of the past. Help rural and local communities to have access to opportunities. Okay, so here's our activity. And this one, we're gonna look at it and answer those questions together, but we're just gonna give you 2 minutes to look at this because now it's a summary of the topic. Welcome back, creators. Probably you were maybe defining what is economic development, but we're going to do this together, and then you can also practice when you get chance. If you look at here under this cartoon, it's a package of these policies from 1994 up until 2019, which is the small policy there that was not developed effectively. So if you look at number one, according to the questions there, it says, what was the main objective of the new growth path, the NGP? Solutions are enhance growth, create employment. Surely this was there, or surely the employment should be part of your answers. Under these policies, employment should be there. Also to create what? Greater equity. Then that is 1 mark there. Number 2, it says list one objective of accelerated and shared initiative for South Africa, which is Asisa. The first one, we said it is to eliminate unemployment and poverty by 2014, or you could have said it is to create employment opportunities. When you create more employment opportunities, unemployment goes down. It was also there to promote economic growth at an average of around 6% between the years of 2010 as well as 2014. So those are part of the answers that we are having, but we've covered all of them. Employment is there, it should be covered. Growth is there, it has also been covered. So that's another 1 mark that you are collecting there. Briefly describe the term economic development. Economic development refers to the improvement in the quality or standard of living of the people in the country or of the citizens. So what we are saying here is, unlike economic growth, where we are saying it is an increase in the production of goods and services, economic development refers to an improvement or increase in people's standard of living. It's 2 marks, that one as well. Then it says, explain the successes of the Reconstruction and Development Program on the South African economy. You would tell me that it was successful or it has achieved its objectives because people have got access to clean and safe running water. There's an improvement in healthcare, and also the issue of land was there. Or you could tell me the opposite now, to say it has not been successful because there's still more people that don't have access to clean water. There's still more people that don't have access to housing. There's still more people that don't have access to health care. So here, it has been successful or it has not been successful. How will the implementation of the National Development Plan benefit the economy? The National Development Plan, it is there to reduce unemployment, especially for the youth, the young people. It is there to increase competitive capacity of the economy, to improve the standard of living by eliminating poverty and reduce inequality by the years 2030, and also to increase the pace of industrialization. So this policy says by 2030, there should be zero hunger. It means there should not be any person that goes to sleep without eating anything. And also the issue of inequality should have been eliminated. Now this policy, you cannot fully evaluate it now, but you can say that it might not be successful because already it's 2024. So how many years are left towards 2030? Are we going to achieve a situation where the people's standard of living are improved, or a situation where people live without poverty, or the poverty is totally eliminated? So you can evaluate on that. The issue of industrialization, are we promoting more industries, or do we have more industries in South Africa? So also that can also be evaluated. So those are the possible answers that we are having grade 12, hoping that you are taking the keywords and notes. Okay, our last portion now, it is the issue of the North-South divide. Looking at this map we have said when we define the North-South divide, we said the North developed countries or countries in the North Hemisphere are developed, and we also said the countries in the South are underdeveloped. And I want us to look at something. It means when you are looking at this, we would say the countries in the South are developing, while the countries in the North are developed. In this map, I'm going to draw a line that shows the difference between the countries in the developing countries that are developed and the countries that are developing. Okay, there's it. Look at that. But here's the catch here. If you look at Australia is in the south, but it is developed. So we need to be very careful when we talk about the issue of development. We are not saying all the countries that are in the north are developed and all the countries that are in the south are underdeveloped. There are certain aspects of development that we are going to be looking at. And those are as follows. We look at the issue of infrastructure, the issue of standard of living. We also look at the issue of productivity. We also look at the issue of population growth and the issue of unemployment or employment rates, the issue of income distribution. While we look at, so if you measure this, you say, even if a country is in the south, but as long as high development of infrastructure is there is high standard of living, there is high productivity, that country will be classified as a developed country. We are in the south as South Africa, but we want to see ourselves as a developed country. Low standard of living is another factor, low productivity, and we are looking at high population growth with countries in the south, high unemployment rate. Also, we are looking at the issue of climate, soil and terrain restrictions. So if you are looking at this, the country on the map can be in the south, but if it has got well-developed facilities, that country will be classified as the developed country. Then we want to look at measures such as sustainable development, measures such as globalization inequality, poverty level, economic growth, production and trade. Then in the developing or in the developed countries, we've got high manufacturing and they receive subsidies. The issue of poverty line is low, while on the other side, the issue of poverty line is high. Environment, there's mass production, consumption, which look at consumption and damages the ozone layer, and also look at they cause pollution and toxic waste. In that way, the environment is damaged. The standard of living, real GDP per capita, life expectancy, education, as well as literacy levels. If you look at in the developing countries, the literacy level is low. And in the developed countries, the literacy level is high. If you look at the issue of education, in the developed countries, there's high level of education, while in the developing countries, there is low level of education, as a revision in terms of the characteristics of developing countries. So when we close it, we are saying countries in the south does not literally mean that they are developing countries, but there are factors that we need to look at. Countries in the north does not mean that they are all developed, but there are also factors that need to be looked at. Education, the standard of living, as well as income per capita. Those are the things that we need to look at. Grade 12. Thank you for watching this lesson. We'll see you next time.